Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Megan, and here we talk about all things books, writing, grammar, and more. Please make sure to subscribe as I post every Tuesday with the possibility of bonus videos on Fridays. I'm here today to tell you all the rules you learned in school that you can go ahead and erase from your memory. While many things we learn in English class are a great foundation, the strict rules used as blanket statements for all of writing can really hold writers back from telling their stories in a way that readers actually want to read. Blanket statements in general don't work because there are always exceptions to the rules. So let's go through these and break the bad habits that your English class may have given you. As a quick disclaimer, I am a proofreader and I did used to be an English teacher, so I do have a fair amount of background knowledge for what I'm actually telling you. I do believe in education, so none of what I say here should be taken as me hating on schools, teachers, or education as a whole. Just wanted to clear that up before we get started. 11 rules in English I give you full permission to break. First up, and I hope you see the irony in this, are transition words. I'm sure we've all had these drilled into our brains over and over and over again. We were told in schools to always use first, second, then, next, finally, or in conclusion to make our points clear. And while this can sometimes be effective in writing essays, it has no business being in your manuscript whatsoever. In writing, we need to be telling our stories in a way that the reader naturally follows the transition and progression of the story. We don't need to be telling them on the last page or two a summary of everything that they read and say, in conclusion, this is where we are. Your readers are smart, so tell the story straight and guide them along without feeling the need to use these buzzwords. Number 2. Never start a sentence with the words and, but, or because. Remember in school, if you started a sentence with any of these words, you would get marked down, and it doesn't even make sense. Why? Because starting a sentence with these words is perfectly acceptable. Don't be afraid to start your sentences with these words. I promise it's fine. Number 3, never using the words I or you. Teachers always wanted our research papers to be objective, so by removing I or you, it's a great start to doing that. However, what they told us was that we should never do it in any of our writings. This can make our words extremely impersonal and restrict our language tremendously. I promise no one cares if you're using these words in your story. In fact, they can actually make your book super interesting. Think about stories that break the fourth wall. You can't do that without addressing your audience directly, which requires you to use words such as I or you. When it's done well, these stories are really fun to read. Number 4, adhering to a strict paragraph length or structure. This rule can just be balled up and thrown out the window. Paragraphs in books don't really have strict rules at all. Mainly, you need to start a new paragraph if someone else is speaking or when the subject changes. That's it. You can have a paragraph that's an entire page or one word. Add variety to your writing. It makes it so much more interesting to read a story when you feel like you're reading an actual story and not a form that had to adhere to strict guidelines. Number 5, avoid profanity at all costs. Sure, if you're writing a professional paper, avoid profanity. But if you're writing a historical fiction novel following a military unit before they go into battle, it's going to be strange if there are no swear words whatsoever. The lack of profanity is going to seem insanely inaccurate and probably be a bit more of a distraction to your readers if everyone is watching their language in your book. Now, of course, this will depend on genre and target audience. Please don't put swear words in kids' books. They do not belong there. But people use all sorts of words in real life, so it only makes sense to have them in your book. I remember being taught in school that using profanity in any sort of story would make the readers see us as unprofessional and not take us seriously, and that's really just not the case. Number 6, using only formal jargon. This includes never using contractions. This is something that is really distracting to me as a reader. People use contractions in real life, so if the bad guy in your story is saying something like, I cannot let you live, or I do not want you to live another moment, it kind of sounds like he's spouting poetry to your MC instead of threatening him. Forget being proper and focus on telling the story. Now this also includes using fancy words and long sentences. Your readers do not want to have to pull out a dictionary every other word in your story, nor do they want to read line after line after line of this same sentence. Shorter sentences are much easier to digest for your readers, and varying the lengths of sentences really does make the reading experience more enjoyable. Number 7, quantity over quality. You remember when you had to have a word count hit every single time you wrote an assignment in school? This was to ensure you actually wrote more than 2 sentences, but it didn't really give you a lot of leeway for quality work. When you put word count restrictions on somebody, it's hard for them to tell the story that they need. You can either have them repeating the same sentences over and over, or you're forcing them to eliminate important parts of the story. Do not focus on word count when you're writing. Focus on saying the words that need to be said in order to tell the story that you need to tell. Number 8, limiting yourself to storytelling structures. Do you remember in your creative writing classes when they would give you that sheet and it was the little diagram, which is a great storytelling structure, but each one had like 3 bullets, and you were not allowed to deviate from the structure whatsoever. These creative writing assignments a lot of the times restricted people's creative thinking outside of just the normal structure and didn't really allow people to tell the story in different ways. Number 9, needing flawless grammar. Yes, I am a proofreader, and I'm here to say you do not need flawless grammar throughout your entire novel. While 99% of the rules should be followed, such as using quotation marks when someone speaks, or using the correct versions of your and your, these ones I'm not going to budge on. But you don't need to focus so much on the structure of your writing. You can be lyrical and repeat phrases over and over to make a point. Like I said earlier, there are always exceptions to rules, and that includes grammar. But remember, if your editor is telling you to make changes because your work's unreadable and you're claiming it's a style choice, really consider if your goal for writing is to create new styles that no one can read or to share your story. Number 10, never use slang. If you're writing a story that's in first-person POV, told by a teenager, why would they not be using slang? Now this can be a tricky area. It can date your book. If someone's using the word groovy, we're probably thinking we're somewhere in the 60s or 70s. And it can also alienate some people in your audience if they're not familiar with certain slang words. But you do not need to avoid slang words entirely. There's a time and place for everything, even slang. And number 11, always use commas at natural breaks. If you were taught this in school, it's going to be really hard for you to break this habit. Following this rule creates all sorts of problems in your writing, such as creating comma splices or putting your commas in places that really just don't make any sense. People don't always naturally break their sentences in the same places, so it can cause a lot of confusion for your readers if you're using them improperly. Lean on your editors to help you break this habit. So there you have it, 11 rules we learned in school that you can ignore while you're writing. Tell me in the comments some of the rules you learned in school that you love to break. And if you found this video helpful, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more bookish and writing related videos. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye!